In this video, we're making a custom travel map animation all in DaVinci Resolve. If you need to go anywhere, here's a great way to show people where you're going. Let's go. Get it? Here we are in DaVinci Resolve. I'm in the Fusion page here, and I'm just gonna go up to Workspace and turn off Show Page Navigation just so we have a little bit of room. And we're gonna start with a good old background. The background node. I'm gonna take this background node and drag this in here, take the output and plug that into Media Out. That's gonna give us a black screen on the right. I'll just click this button up here to give us just a single viewer. Let's make this a little bigger. And for our background, let's make this kind of the ocean color. So let's just pick kind of a bluish, go with something like that. Depending on the type of map you're making, you might want that or not. And we're just gonna let this be our background, and let's rename this ocean color underscore BG. And now we actually need the map. You can do this a bunch of different ways. You can take a still from Google Maps. You can use a hand-drawn map or whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna use a large PNG map, and I'll just drag this in and hit 1 on the keyboard to show what this is. This is just a map of North America on transparent here so that we can put this over whatever background color we want. And this is a 3840 by 3840, just PNG. Let's rename this. I'll hit F2 and say map underscore MI for media in. Let's take the output of this map and drag it over our ocean color background like this. And now we have the map overlaid over the ocean. Depending on how far you're going, what you're showing, that kind of thing. Ooh, that kind of rhymes. How far you're going and what you're showing, you're gonna wanna make the map bigger or smaller. And so let's hit Shift Spacebar and type XF for transform. You can also just grab this transform icon right here and drag this in. But we're gonna take this transform, and that's what we're gonna use to kind of move this map around. And I think I'll just take the size down for now. And let's just say that we're going to drive across the United States, right? All the way from good old Oregon all the way over to Florida. Oregon, where sane people live, like me and the guys that are on my team, Dan and Sam. And Florida, where insane people live, like Andy, who does our customer service. Let's also maybe change the color of this map. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. What I'm gonna do is just use a color corrector. So we can take this 5th icon over, this color corrector, and drag this in between our map and our transform. Generally, you want to color correct something before you transform it, before you do a bunch of stuff to it. You want to color correct kind of the most raw version of the image that you can. So before you scale it and mask it and all that stuff. So let's do this color corrector. One thing I'm going to make sure to do is here under options, make sure to check pre-divide, post-multiply. That's going to make sure that any color correction that we do doesn't affect the entire image, but just where the image is opaque. So if I didn't have this on and I did something like push the lift up, see how it's brightening everything in the whole world? If I go to options here and I click pre-divide, post-multiply, boom, it's only going to adjust where this image actually is, which you think would be just what it would do automatically, but it don't. Anyway, I'm gonna take this and adjust the hue. I'm gonna push the hue around and make this more of kind of a green. I like this green, that's nice. Maybe adjust the gamma and push that down a little bit. Just get a little bit more contrast with the ocean here. Something like that. Maybe I'll make the ocean a little bit brighter. Just take this ocean color and bring that up. There we go. Somewhere along those lines. Maybe this is a little bit saturated. I'll take the saturation down a touch. Yeah, keep it tasteful. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And of course you could replace these colors or do whatever you want, or change it in the original art, whatever you want to do. But now we have this kind of prepped. Now, we want to visualize the journey from one side of the nation to the other. And essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw a line. But I'm gonna do this a really special way. Even though we're looking at this in a 1920 by 1080 comp, because our background is 1920 by 1080, I'm actually gonna do a lot of this animation here just at the same resolution as our original map. The reason for that is because then we can pan this around and we can kind of adjust it all together as one group later, because the locations on the map are going to stick to the map. They're not going to be separate, and so there's no real reason to keep them separate. So what we can do is I'll just hit 2 on the keyboard to bring up the map here. We can just bring it up after the color corrector too, doesn't matter. As long as it's the same resolution. This is before we transformed it or matted it on a 1080 comp or anything like that. And this is the canvas that we're going to use to draw our travel line. What I'll do is let's go ahead and just make a background, and we're going to make this background the same resolution as this map, 3840 by 3840. Let's take this background, go over here to image, and under here, let's uncheck auto resolution, and then we'll say 3840 by 3840. That's going to make a black square background. And let's not make this black. Let's make it red or yellow or something. Let's do yellow. I like yellow. There we go. So we'll make this yellow. And this is going to be the color of our lines and our dots and anything that we show our journey with. Okay. And so we'll just rename this background. We'll just call this journey color. And let's say underscore BG, just so we remember what kind of node this is. So we're going to take all of this and we're going to merge it over our color corrected map. And so let's just go ahead and grab a merge here. Let's run this color corrector into the background of the merge and the yellow background node into the foreground of the merge. Let's take the output of this merge and put that into transform. And everything should be pretty much the same other than we're just looking at yellow here. Let's view this merge here on our second viewer here. I'm just hitting 2 on the keyboard. And let's go ahead and draw a mask. So I'll just take a polygon mask here, drag this up near the color BG, and connect it to the mask input. That's going to make it disappear because it's only going to draw that color where the mask is, and we don't have a mask, so it's not going to draw on at all. So let's zoom in here, and let's start here Oregon-ish, and I'm just going to put a dot, and then let's just kind of make up a journey here. Let's just kind of do something like this, and we'll go over to Florida. I don't know if this is the road you would actually take. It probably isn't. It's probably more boring than this, but let's say that's how we drove from beginning to end like that. To make this into a line, we can take this polygon mask. And by the way, I haven't filled this at all. I haven't went around and filled it like that because that will fill it in. I've just left this as an open-ended line, but I can go over here to where it says border width and I can push up the border width and look at that. Now we have a line that's drawn across the country. And what's cool is I can take this length slider and I can move this back and forth and it draws our little journey. You see where we're going with this? Do you see where we're going? It just writes itself.
Yes, that's a laugh. That's something to write back to Mom about.
We'll keep it just like this for now. Let's have a nice start point and an end point. Let's make a couple dots. We can actually do this just by stacking the same mask. Let's just go ahead and grab an ellipse and just run this right into our polygon mask. And that's going to fill in a circle here. And let's just put this here at the beginning. And we'll make this a little bit smaller like that. And then I'll just copy and paste this, Control C, Control V. That's going to make another ellipse and we'll move this over here to the end. Okay. So now we have our journey from beginning to end and we can animate it using this length slider like that. Oh, so good. Now let's say that we're going to animate this over 5 seconds. And so let's go ahead and take this length slider all the way down and hit a keyframe here. I'm also going to actually right click here for shape animation and remove polygon 1 polyline. That's just going to make this so that it's not an animated shape. It's not going to affect what we're doing, but it will help Fusion play back a little better. And I'm going to go almost to the end. Let's have this end at like 100 frames and I'll push the length out like that. So now we have this animated over time to draw this line from one side to the other. Perfect. So now that we have that, remember this is in the big 4K square comp, right? So let's go down here to media out and I'll hit 2 on the keyboard. Now we can see the entire journey here because we're zoomed out. But with this transform, we can use this almost like a 2D camera, right? So if I reset size and center, I can move this around and kind of pan this. I could even, maybe fudge this a little bit and say 1.5. And I can move this around and we can follow this journey from one side to the other. And so let's start here. And I'm just going to animate the center of our transform. And what this is really doing is we're looking through a window and then we're moving the map kind of under the window, but it looks like we're traveling along kind of with a camera. So as we go, let's go all the way to frame 100 and we'll adjust our center to kind of follow this along, right? So now as we go, we're kind of panning with this. And then at various points, we might want to kind of move this around and adjust it, and it's going to automatically do that for us. So yeah, that looks pretty good. And we're kind of following that animation. And if this is all you want, this is great. There's nothing wrong with this. It's like, oh man, we went all the way from Oregon, all the way through the country down towards Florida. Perfect. We're done, you know? So you could stop the video here if that's all you want. But if you want to make this like, you want to like, but if you want to make this next level,
let's get a little bit crazy.
In a movie that we released the other day about a couple of guys that shot their wiener dog into space and then traveled across the country to retrieve him after re-entry. I'm sorry, and you're welcome. Watch the video here if you want to see that. Anyway, in this movie, they're going on a little road trip together in their 68 Ford Ranchero. So stupid. And so what we want to do is take this little car icon and have that drive along the way. So we're going to do this actually in a really similar way to how we set up our line. Let's just grab our ranchero.png and take the output and merge that over our merge to, and then hit 2 on the keyboard. And now, again, we're back on the big map, right? So we're not pan and scanning it or anything like that. This is just the big map, like the master animation, right? And we're going to animate this going across this map. The reason we're doing it this way, and we're not animating this later, on this view, is because it's just going to be harder to animate. We're going to have to animate this along this line that's growing and also deal with the movement of the camera. And we just don't need to do that. There's no point in that. So we're just going to animate this going across the country, make a transform here, and we'll scale this down with the transform and make this about the right size. And it doesn't have to be to scale. I mean, if it were, you couldn't even see the car. That's just visual science right there.
Science, you say?
But we can have this car drive across the country and kind of leave this line as a trail. And there are probably some kind of fancy tricks to find out where the end of this line is. But honestly, it's probably more work than just animating it ourselves real quick. And so we're just going to animate it ourselves real quick here. I'm going to turn off this media in real quick, just so that we can see stuff under it. And we're going to start at the dot, and I'm going to animate this center. And remember, I just have my transform to selected here. And I'm just going to go through each frame until we have a turning point here. And I'm just going to drag this down and put this right there. And then we're going to go through until the next turning point, back up one, and just make sure we're at the right place here. By the way, I'm just hitting the left and right bracket on the keyboard to advance or go back a frame. You can also do that with the left and right keys sometimes, depending on if you have something selected or not, but the brackets always work. So let's put this here. There we go. And so because of this, it's really important that you get your route just right before you animate this. But I only have to keyframe it right here at the corners because it's going to animate perfectly in a linear way along this line. Okay, perfect. There we go. So now if I go through this at any point, wherever that line is, this little center should be right at the end of the line. And that looks like it's working great. And then let's turn on our media in, and that's going to make our car be right there. And it's going to look like the car is kind of riding this line onto the map, which is the effect we're looking for. That's cool. You can also rotate it and everything if you want to. I think it works fine to just kind of use this as an icon, but you can totally rotate it if you want to. That would just take a little bit more keyframing, but same idea. And now we have our car. Let's add some buddies. All right, we got to have buddies on a road trip. Let's get a little bit organized here. I'll call this car_mi. This is going to be car XF, and this is all running through that transform. We'll just call this a camera XF, kind of give ourselves some room here. And what's really cool is if we're running things through a transform like this, we can sort of use this to group things and parent things together. So here's how this works. This car is at full resolution. And let's say I want to add somebody's face kind of coming out of the window, like somebody hanging out the window. We can merge something with this car and then take that merged image and apply this transform to it later. That's the cool thing about nodes is you can kind of hook a bunch of stuff up together, and whatever you made will kind of flow down the flow of nodes. Those will all be transformed together. So this will make more sense here in a second. Let's just grab a picture of Sam, and I'll hit 2 on the keyboard to bring him up. And we're just going to cut out his face. I'm just going to select this node and go to our polygon and apply that there. I'm going to go over to the inspector and turn off the polygon so I can see what the heck I'm doing. And then let's just draw a little outline around him like this. You could also use Magic Mask and cut it out if you have the paid version of Resolve. But for those in the cheap seats, let's just take 2 seconds and cut this out. There we go. Let's turn on our polygon again, and that's going to isolate his head. Perfect, right? Now, notice that I did that with the media in, with the actual image up here in the viewer. If you're viewing some other size image, or you're viewing something that's transformed or something, your mask is going to be off. So you always want to view whatever you're masking itself on the viewer while you're masking it, okay? So now this is kind of like its own isolated little file, right? And we can take this and let's just merge this over our car. Just take the output like this, just like that. And now if I hit 2 on the keyboard, we have his face on top of the car, right? Which is sort of what we want. Let's make another transform here, and we could change the size and move this around like that, and he'll be like this. Now, this is getting cut off as we view the car, but it's not going to be a problem later. Watch this. If we view our car transform, it's not getting cut off. But what's neat is that this moves along with the car. So it's kind of like parented to it. And that transform is getting applied to the car as well as the isolated face. And so you can kind of build groups of things like this and then run them through that animation, which is really, really convenient if you want to change something later. So let's call this Sam face MI. And let's do the similar thing with my face. Okay, we're just going to bring this up. Again, grab a polygon, connect this. Let's turn off the polygon in the inspector, and we'll just do a little bit of cutting stuff out here. Okay. Turn that on, and we have the isolated head. Yay! Now we can do this same thing. Let's merge this over too. We'll take this over that last input like this. We'll take another transform. I'll just copy and paste this transform on. Let's see where we're at. It's going to put it in the exact same place, which I don't quite want. So I'll move this over like that. Maybe make it a little smaller. Maybe turn it a little bit. There's our friends. Yay! They're popping out of the car. Let's go ahead and take a look at our media out. Just going to select that and hit 2 on the keyboard. And now look at our buddies. We're driving around. We're driving across the country. Here we go. Oh, it's so stupid. I love it though. I love it so much. All right. So this totally works. I mean, this is super fun. One thing we might do is right here on our last keyframe, let's go ahead and ease that so it comes to a stop a little bit faster. You don't want to ease all of these keyframes or else you're going to have to go back and do a bunch of stuff. You could do that, but it's going to be really hard to match up the animation this way. So we're probably just going to keep it kind of normal, linear, except for the last part. Let's go to spline and let's select car XF displacement. So right here, get rid of this second to last keyframe. Right here, this last keyframe, I'll hit F on the keyboard to flatten it out. And I think that's probably just going to work out fine. Boop. Yeah. So now it comes to a stop a little more gradually. I can hold down Alt and grab this handle and move it over a little bit here in the spline panel. Yeah, that's nice. We'll also do this for the beginning. F on the keyboard, hold down Alt, drag this out, and that's probably going to work fine. If you ease this too much, the yellow line will get in front of him. And so we just want to ease it a little bit just so we can fudge this a little bit and have it be nice. There we go. So now we're on a road trip, baby. So much fun. Let's do one more little thing here. Since we're on a road trip and it's fun, let's kind of like bobble our heads back and forth. Okay. This is kind of a little bit of secondary animation here. And we can do this in these transforms here. So let's take this first transform and let's just view our merge 5 here. For this face, let's have it bobble back and forth, but we want it to bobble from like the neck, right? We don't want it to just be the middle of the face, or maybe we do, but either way, we need to adjust this pivot. Here in the inspector, under center, there is a pivot. And if you move this off, you'll see it moves this little green X around. This is where things are going to rotate from. This is like the axis. And so you can move this around. And if you already have it transformed, it's going to kind of like move it weird. And so you'll kind of have to just offset it and move it back to where you want, but that's okay. But now if we rotate this, if I take this angle, see it rotates from his neck like this. And we're going to start like this. We're going to start to the side and then I'll hit the keyframe diamond there. And then over here, 24 frames or so, let's have it go towards the other side. So now it starts this way and then it goes the other way. Just like that. And we could animate this back and forth a bunch if we want to, but we can take a little shortcut here. If we go into our spline panel and go to our angle. By the way, on this spline panel, I have a little option under these 3 dots to show only selected tool. I really like that because then you don't have this whole list of things here. You just say show selected tool and you can click on whatever node you want to adjust. Let's take both of these keyframes. I'll hit F on the keyboard to flatten out those tangents, and now it will move from one side to the other. We can select both of these with a box and then right click, and there is an option called set loop. And if we go to set loop and say ping pong, what this is going to do is go in between these 2 keyframes over and over again, which is going to give us this nice little rotatey thing, this little head bob. We don't have to do it ourselves. It just perfectly ping pongs between those 2 things. Isn't that great? Oh, so much fun. He's so happy. Let's do this for me as well. Same idea. Let's take this pivot and move that down and then take that center offset like this. And we're going to adjust the angle. We'll make the angle this way a little bit, and then 24 frames-ish. We'll move it back. Select these, hit F on the keyboard, right click, set loop, ping pong. See, after our keyframes, it makes these little dots. And that's because it's imaginary, right? And now we have this nice little animation back and forth, and they're so happy. They're so happy to be on a road trip together, those buddies. All right, let's see what this looks like. Hit 2 on the keyboard for our media out. Here we go. They're so happy. There's our animation, guys. So exciting. So yeah, super fun project to do in Fusion. If you're new here and you don't know who I am, my name's Casey and I teach Fusion. So anybody who's into DaVinci Resolve, you're looking to get kind of fancy with your videos, well, this is a great place for you. And if you're brand new to Fusion and you're like, gosh, that's a lot of nodes and I don't even know what to do. Well, check out the 9 nodes workshop up there, where we explore the essential 9 nodes that you need to make almost anything in Fusion, a lot of which we use today. Goes over the basic minimal things that you need to be able to make cool stuff in Fusion without having to learn 5 million nodes and be overloaded. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's a workshop. You can get that right here for free. It's my gift to you. There's also this video here that's just perfect if you want to learn more Fusion stuff. Hey, thanks for going on this journey with me. It's a map journey. It's a journey map. It's travel journey. A lot.